you on Initiative Africa. My name is Asha Sampet. Welcome to this new edition of your weekly magazine featuring Africa on the move through smart innovations and initiatives that work. Let's get on with the show with our top stories today. Our guest this week is Valentine Bozo. He's undoubtedly one of the best African experts in digital technology and its applications in the finance and electronic banking sectors. Head of the Gmat, the CMAC Electronic Banking Interbank Group for 10 years, he wants to bring digital technology into all African homes with simple and secure systems for money transfers and payment cards.
Initially, a few years ago, the card was for the elite. It's not been long since the card became something for ordinary people. Even those with no income can have a card.
African banks are on the rise and they seek to adapt to withstand competition from mobile finance.
In some countries, banks have gone bankrupt. Then, to be quite honest, access to financial services is expensive when you look at people's standard of living.
Quand on regarde le niveau de vie de la population.
We head for Djibouti and its submarine fiber cables that connect Africa. They are a decisive asset today to facilitate payments by smartphones.
There are many innovative services to set up. The demand is there and we need private sector players to make that happen.
The African banking market continues to expand with more than 300 million Africans holding an account. The continent is already the world's second largest market in terms of profitability and growth. But the underbanked population remains an issue, as do mobile banking applications which force traditional banks to reinvent themselves. A report by David Thiompiano, Abubakar Munchili and Jeremy Koulibaly.
If you don't earn much, you can't pay money into your account. You won't have enough left to buy food. That's why I haven't got a bank account. I work my land and earn money, but it's not much.
According to a worldwide study by Global Findex, the number of bank account holders increased 20% between 2011 and 2015. This rise is in no small part due to the banking boom in sub-Saharan Africa, with a 40% increase spurred on by the opening of 30,000 new agencies in 4 years. Despite these promising figures, sub-Saharan Africa still has a very low banking penetration rate. Just 10 to 15% of over 15-year-olds have a bank account. The most common criticism made of banks in Africa is that they are extremely risk-averse and have the world's highest interest rates, despite their excess liquidity. This money is not being put to work and could be used to finance projects and investments for industrialists, SMEs and individuals.
Historiquement, il y a quand même une méfiance vis-à-vis.
There is a deep-rooted mistrust of the banking system.
Les banques ont fait faillite. La deuxième explication, il faut le dire.
In some countries, banks have gone bankrupt. Then, to be quite honest, access to financial services is expensive when you look at people's standard of living.
Quand on regarde le niveau de vie de la population.
All things considered, the African banking system is a long way from achieving the goal of financial inclusion, now considered a prerequisite in the global war on poverty, alongside access to healthcare, drinking water and electricity. Microfinance institutions are filling the vacuum created by the absence of traditional banks. They are quicker to innovate and tailor the costs of their financial services to suit less well-heeled clients.
We are above all a credit union. Everyone is a shareholder. When you open an account, just putting $1.50 in makes you a participant in the decision-making.
The sheer volume of banknotes in circulation is a consequence of low banking service penetration. Central bank guidelines stipulate that any payment over $150 should be made by check or a similarly appropriate method of payment. Most of the time, the guidelines are ignored. Mobile banking is impacting the huge amounts of cash changing hands. 34% of people living in sub-Saharan Africa now have electronic purse systems. With mobile phones, payments can be made and money transferred and received, even in the most isolated villages.
You might get 30 to 50 clients a day like that, and daily turnover can be as much as $320 to $500. Deposits can be $16,000 to $17,500, with withdrawals of $8,000 to $9,500. Transfers can run as high as $14,500. It is clear that multiple banking has brought banking services to the most isolated communities, and for a relatively low cost. There is also the guarantee of secure payments. The system is directly accessible, and that should help boost banking penetration rates on the continent.
Microfinance and mobile banking are spearheading the revolution by providing financial services for millions of people previously denied access to traditional banking facilities. If it doesn't want to get left behind, old-school banking is going to need a makeover.
It's now time to meet our guest, Valentin Bozo. He is the Managing Director of the Gmat, the CMAC Interbank Electronic Banking Group, which brings together the 6 countries of Central Africa. A telecom engineer and a graduate of the École des Arts et Métiers in Paris, he successfully launched the Gmat payment card, and in a few years it has risen to the rank of major international cards with more than 10 million transactions. He answers to the questions of our journalists François Baudry and Aboubakar Mounchili. Hello, Valentin MBOZO'O. First, if you read the media reports, you get the feeling that your organization is creating a real revolution in the fields of electronic banking with innovations that cannot be found anywhere else. In simple terms, tell us about the Gmat Pay ecosystem.
I'm not sure it's a revolution, but maybe. Gmat is the organization in the Central African sub-region in charge of implementing electronic banking and promoting compatible electronic banking. The Gmat Pay ecosystem is a set of services around a platform that makes the interoperability of bank cards, the interoperability of mobile money, and makes these two environments compatible with money transfers.
But why have you also integrated money transfers from abroad?
Money transfers from abroad? Because the exchange regulations in the sub-region are now very limited for the transfer of money outside of the country, given the various economic aspects in terms of capital flight, tax evasion, terrorist financing, or even money laundering, which undermines the place.
Was it all this premature since the banking rate doesn't top 15% in Central Africa, the lowest rate on the continent?
Oh, not at all, not at all. It's not premature. If perhaps the bank card was somewhat linked to banking, it's clear that in terms of mobile, it's everyone. In some CMAC countries, between 85% and 100% of users own a smartphone, and some even have several mobiles.
100% d'utilisateurs. Et même voire certains ont plusieurs mobiles. Donc, sur ce point,
so on this point, mobile payments, mobile money has really conquered households and consciences.
Conquis les ménages et les consciences.
In 2015, you made your first significant launch, the Gmat Card. But what is this card for if I already have a Visa, MasterCard or American Express in my wallet? Aren't they competitors?
Bien sûr que oui, c'est des cartes qui sont en concurrence, mais...
Yes, of course, these cards are commercial competitors, but when it comes to cost, the Gmat card isn't free, but it is very attractively priced, so it's a card that is less expensive and with the same level of security.
Au même niveau de sécurité, pour les 96% des
96% of the people in CMAC now have a tool that allows them mobility, ease of use, and security. Because carrying cash as they used to was pricey. And there is no exchange rate. If you make transactions with international cards in the zone, Sometimes the payment is in dollars or euros and so on. So all these are the advantages of having this card.
Okay, does that mean the major credit cards like Visa and the others are no longer of interest?
I'm not sure I would say the major credit cards are no longer of interest, but they've lost value. They're not what they were a few years ago. Let's take the Central Africa zone. When you look at Central Africa now, Gmat, with virtually no part of market share a few years ago, today has 22%, not very far behind Visa. And ahead of the other operators in the sub-region. And we are expanding even further, because following a decision taken by the governor of the Bank of Central African States in 2018, aimed at decompartmentalizing all payments in the sub-region to have visibility, to trace flows and so on, we deal with everything to do with credit cards, transactions, cards issued by these international operators, Visa and MasterCard and Union Pay. When the cards have been issued locally, we process them. It all goes through Gmat.
What is the main advantage of the Gmat card?
The fact you reduce the cost of transactions and commissions by a factor of 2 to 3 times, or even a little more in some CMAC or WMOA countries. And also, you know, there's the cost of owning the card. Did you know there are cards, I'm not saying which ones so as not to publicly criticize certain operators on certain international networks, as they're known, international networks. They charge more than 200,000 to 300,000 CFA francs a year. The card, Gmat, is peanuts. It doesn't cost much.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. Mobile money, modernization of the banking sector, nothing would be possible without the development of telecommunications. And precisely, Djibouti is at the forefront in this area. The territory of the Horn of Africa is indeed at the crossroads of international submarine cables, and the country's national operator is responsible of its surveillance. The outcome, very innovative services to be sent all across Africa. But Djiboutian entrepreneurs are also starting to take an interest in the possibilities of developing mobile payment within the country. To better understand this sector, we followed Kadra Duxier, a young startup CEO who wants to bill her compatriots through a smartphone. Take a look.
Late afternoon in Bel Bella, a popular neighborhood west of Djibouti, the capital. The young entrepreneur, Kadra Duxier, is visiting her partners and clients, a total of 4,000 subscribers and 100 boutiques. And what is she selling exactly? At first sight, her product might seem to be superfluous for a population of refugees displaced by war and famine. Kadra's Telecommunications company has developed a platform specializing in electronic payments by cell phones. The system is a well-known and very popular means of payment in East Africa, but here in Djibouti, it is the new kid on the block. Kadra's idea was to make the service available to those who, somewhat surprisingly, needed it the most.
On avait approché le Programme alimentaire mondial.
We contracted the World Food Program, as they are used to using the electronic payment system with our neighboring countries of Somalia, Ethiopia, and Kenya. People there are very satisfied with the services proposed, as it has made money transfers easier. Distribution of food and supplies was done hand to hand, and now the process has changed, with money being transferred directly to the beneficiaries who then, in turn, go to the stores to buy the food and supplies they need. This saves them time and restores their self-respect, as they no longer have to wait in interminable queues. Everybody wins.
Such an innovative service is, in many respects, thanks to the cell phone network set up by Djibouti Telecom, a network that has 366,000 subscribers. This figure pales in comparison to those of continental Africa, but Djibouti does have a major advantage, the key to which lies on the other side of this wall, in an unassuming neighborhood in the capital. We are in the Haramus Submarine Cable Center, one of the stations where the transcontinental underwater cables pass. Here are 4 of these vital cables, a superhighway for much of Africa's internet traffic.
This is a section of the actual submarine cable. Some countries had absolutely no access to the submarine cable network. Countries and places such as the Comoros, Mogadishu in Somalia, Madagascar, and Mozambique. Now, thanks to this cable, all of these places have access to international telecommunications.
In all, no less than 7 submarine cables, including 3 international cables, transit via Djibouti, where they are interconnected. Which is why Djibouti has such a vital role both in terms of system maintenance and in supplying a whole range of associated internet services. Little wonder that Djibouti aims to become a data center for the entire continent. This data center was inaugurated in 2013 and is already home to a dozen operators and overseas internet access suppliers. From these servers, their internet traffic heads for Djibouti, and from there, via these submarine cables, from continent to continent.
Nous avons une position géostratégique qui est unique dans la région.
We have a unique geostrategic position in the region. 30 African operators now get their internet service via Djibouti. Over the past 10 years, we have invested more than $10 million to have these transcontinental cables make landfall in Djibouti. As a result, we are in a unique position concerning the international transcontinental cables. No other country has a comparable infrastructure.
Cutting-edge infrastructure already in place and new submarine cable projects on the way. And yet, here in Djibouti, not everyone is concerned they have the best service at the best possible price. In the capital's internet cafes, clients have noticed a clear improvement in the quality of the service provided, but they are not overjoyed at the price they have to pay.
Oui, c'est cher, mais en tout cas,
It is expensive here, but Djibouti Telecom are doing all they can to get the price down. As we are an African country, we hope the situation will improve.
The government intends to use the technological breakthroughs to improve the quality of its administrative services. Since 2016, a new intergovernmental agency has been working to standardize the state's computer networks, with, notably, a project to set up the first government portal to facilitate administrative procedures. The new agency also has a data center.
Le data center répond à une question essentielle de pouvoir mutualiser.
The data center is a solution to the problem of pooling state computer resources. Some have more advanced tools and resources than others. The data center solves this inequality in terms of the availability of computer resources and, above all, satisfies our demands in terms of security.
The private sector, especially in the banking milieu, does not intend to miss out on the new telecommunications era in Djibouti. Governor of the central bank, Ahmed Osman, is ready and waiting.
We have set up a legal framework enabling operators to provide mobile banking services. It is open for the banks, for Djibouti Telecom, and for any other operator. In other words, everybody can use the mobile banking system in Djibouti.
Back in Balbala, Kadra Duxia is more than ready to launch her cell phone payment service for Djiboutians across the country.
Il y a tellement de services.
There are many innovative services to set up. The demand is there, and we need private sector players to make that happen.
The clients for these offers are there, from Balbala, the heart of Djibouti. Banks are also well aware that their growth also depends on their ability to provide mobile payment services and e-banking. The national operator, Djibouti Telecom, which has a monopoly of telecommunications traffic, is already in the starting blocks for this lucrative market, with a global platform, making it possible for all the actors concerned to provide their clients with mobile payment facilities.
Let's now get back to our guest for the second part of our interview this week. An opportunity to address sensitive issues such as the taxation of financial transactions by states, but also to discover the other Valentin MBOZO'O, the man committed alongside young initiatives of innovative projects. You've just sung the praises of your card compared to the giants Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay and others. But who has this card in the 6 Central African countries?
Initially, a few years ago, the card was for the elite. It's not been long since the card became something for ordinary people. Even those with no income can have a card.
According to the central bank, transactions in the mobile money sector have exploded by more than 1,000% in the sub-region. A value of 6 billion obviously whets the appetites of states. The Congo has just introduced a 20% tax on electronic financial transactions, and Cameroon is planning something quite similar. What are your thoughts about this at Gmat?
Je vous remercie de me poser cette question qui est très prégnante.
Thank you for asking. It's an important question.
Celle-ci. La bataille de
GMAC's position is this. The battle for the development and success in our sub-region is a battle against cash, which is very difficult to manage for a swift, agile economy and in the context of globalization.
Pour des économies véloces, agiles, dans un contexte de mondialisation. Alors maintenant, que de peine
the digital world has struggled to convince people who are used to cash to change their habits, to accept digital technology, and to reduce their use of cash.
Réduire leur usage du cash. Les décisions gouvernementales sont
Decisions taken by governments are not for me to pass judgment on. But if I may say something, and it's that my main concern is any increase in the cost of digital transactions for the cardholder might put a brake.
Digital freine l'élan des populations
on the public's willingness to move away from cash.
L'absence, la réduction du cash.
And now, Valentine Bozo, tell us a bit about yourself. While listening to you, you are obviously someone who is passionate. Beyond your professional responsibilities, you are very much involved in the digital development of the African continent. You teach, you advise organizations. Why this vocation?
I, Mr. Valentin MBOZO'O, had my further education in France. I graduated from a provincial high school in Cameroon called the Lycée de Saint-Mélimas. It's about 200 kilometers from the capital. I graduated from the final year of this high school. Then I came to France and I did very well at my studies. After a very tough selection process, I was one of just a few students accepted at the National Institute of Telecommunications in Paris. I studied telecommunications and then I went on to do other things. I did what is now called a Master's II degree at the National Conservatory of Arts and Crafts. I'd earlier wanted to be a mechanic, so I did a Master's degree in mechanics, mechanic modeling and simulation.
But at this period of your life, you had little thought of Cameroon and working on behalf of the continent.
Well, after my studies in France, I thought, I have nothing to do here. They need me in Africa. I returned to Africa and I said to myself, why are my colleagues who were classmates today making planes, satellites, or whatever else, even vaccines? And me, the African engineer, because I have a black skin, what can I do?
But why choose to help young people rather than take a job as an engineer when there's a lack of skilled labor in Africa?
When I looked around, I said to myself that with the knowledge I have, I should share it, pass it on, even for free. Coach young people, give something. And beyond that, my own very modest origins showed me that school and knowledge or know-how provide endless returns. And since we Africans don't have a lot of money, we need that at the very least.
Look at
the world's economies that are doing well. It's where people are well trained and they create, they build, they innovate, they constantly develop.
Ils construisent, ils innovent, ils élaborent à chaque instant.
So today I'm open to help all young people, all those in African society who want to set up in the trades where I have some expertise. And even if they ask me to help with their projects or accomplishments on a voluntary basis, I would do it. It's for Africa.
Bénévolement, je le ferai. C'est pour l'Afrique.
Well, that's it. Initiative Africa is over for today. You can, of course, find Valentine Bozo interview and the replay of our programs on our website, africaonair.com. And of course, you can also find us on all our social media channels. Feel free to share, like and comment using the hashtag Initiative Africa. And don't forget, next week, same time, same channel, I'll see you again with a new edition of Business Africa. Have a great week, everyone, and goodbye.